told you that you've been playing Rico wrong this entire time. This video features the best tips and tricks to help you play the thickest machine in Brawl Stars, Rico. Alright, so to start off this guide, let's go to talk about Rico's main attack, bouncy bullets. Rico fires a burst of 5 bullets with a slight spread that can bounce off of walls, and they each gain 1.67 tiles of additional range for every bounce. Now when you're shooting off a wall, no matter where you are, you always want to be moving towards that wall to increase your attack range. You want to always be moving towards the place you're shooting at to increase the range of your bullets so that you can hit more of the enemies. If they're hiding in bushes, say for example, move side to side while shooting off of the wall to cover more ground with your bullets. Now Rico is such a unique brawler where he can attack off of walls, and you can use that to your advantage in multiple ways. For example, you can use it as a way to have more lane control and have further reach to hit an enemy player. Also, it's going to be harder for the enemies to dodge because it's not a direct shot, since a lot of people don't really play against a lot of many bounce based projectile brawlers. What's great is you can access parts of the map that almost any other brawlers don't have with their attacks. Now when using Rico's attacks like his super or hypercharge in general, you always want to be bouncing off as much walls as you can. Since you can extend your main attack every time your shots bounce off a wall, then you want to try and hit as many walls as you can with every attack. Take advantage of this mechanic to cover more ground with your bullets. Now I kinda said this a little bit earlier, but you can use your bounce shots to even scout bushes too. If you fear that an enemy is waiting in a bush nearby to pounce on you, then fire your shots off a wall that go into the bushes to make sure that the enemies can't sneak up onto you. This will allow you to stay far away from the bushes to be safe from immediate danger and deal damage to bush campers. Now you can even use the bounce shots to kind of push the enemies back to make sure that they're not gaining control on the map. This kind of relates to shooting off the walls into the bushes to pressure the enemies away from you, but just in general, it's always good to shoot off walls to keep the enemies back, especially if it's from an angle where you can hit the enemies and they can't attack you back. Now this is something that a lot of you amateur Rico players don't do, is that you guys aren't really studying the map ahead of time. This is something that is super critical to becoming a good Rico player. You have to understand where all the important walls are on the map that you could potentially use to your advantage throughout the match. Now I know I said earlier you want to be bouncing your shots off of as many walls as possible, but you don't want to be going overboard with it. Now although it's good to use the walls to gain that extra distance on your bounce shots, don't use the walls 100% of the time or when you don't need to. The shots that bounce off the wall should be used as an added bonus to your kit in order to hit the enemies. Just don't go absolutely nuts with always using walls to hit the enemies unless you absolutely have to. But okay, that's gonna be for his main attack. Let's go to talk about Rico's super trick shot. Rico's super fires a larger, longer range burst of 12 piercing bullets with a slight spread that can bounce off of walls. Each time they do, they will gain 1.67 tiles of additional range for every bounce. Even though the bullets can pierce through enemies, they can only damage enemies once. However, he can't attack or reload while using his super, and it is cancelled if Rico is knocked back, pulled, or stunned. Now what's pretty cool is that if you can hit pretty much all of your bullets with Rico's super, that can easily help you chain up another super. This is going to be more practical if Rico hits several enemies in a single super. This will be good to gain a lot of charge for your next super, or at least do more damage to the enemies if you can. Now let's say the enemies are out of your main attack range and they're trying to escape you. You can use your super because it has that extended range to hit the enemy. Since your super attack range is longer than your main attack, you can catch enemies off guard by them thinking they will be safe out of your range, but your super could potentially still hit them. Now a time where I'd recommend you use your super instead of just using your normal main attacks is when you're facing higher health brawlers like tanks. Since you'll be firing 12 bullets instead of just the 5, this can be very helpful to do even more damage onto the brawlers that have a lot of health. This will also make it easier to charge up your next super if all of your bullets can connect, kind of like what I said earlier. Now if you think about it, using your super can be a great way to surprise the enemies just in general. What's great is that your super's attack speed can fire faster than your normal main attack bullets. So by using your super when the enemies least expect it, it will make it harder for the enemies to get out of the way and survive your super in general. Now let's be real here, all the tips that I talked about for his main attack, you can basically just reapply it for his super. With Rico's super just being his main attack but on steroids, the philosophy of using his super should be generally the same as his main attack. Just use walls to extend the distance and hit enemies from unexpected angles to deal that extra damage. Now you guys are probably wondering, Brent, how can I counter Rico? He keeps on hitting me with all of his bounce shots. Well, all you need on your team is a wall breaker. Since Rico benefits the most from all the angles he uses from the walls, if you have wall breakers on your team to destroy the walls that Rico is shooting off of, then it might make your team's lives much easier to take control and get him down. But okay, that's gonna be it for his super. Let's go to talk about his gadgets, but the first one I want to talk about is gonna be Bouncy Castle. Activating this gadget gadget allows Rico's next attack to heal him for 256 health each time one of its bullets bounces. This counts for multiple bounces from one bullet, and at most Rico can heal for 3840 health from this gadget. Now using this gadget, like, you have to be bouncing off of walls like it's a necessity. Due to the healing applied to each bounce, the healing can assist him in modes like Bounty, where one's intent is to secure defeats without being defeated, right? It's extremely useful when you're on low health and hitting an enemy behind a wall, as it can heal you while damaging the enemy at the same time. However, in order to use this gadget to its max potential, you need to be bouncing off of as much walls as you can. Just simplify it this way: the more walls that the bounce shots can bounce off of, the more Rico will be able to heal, which you obviously want. So it's never wrong to use the gadget in the intention of healing and not damaging the enemies, given Rico's very fast reload speed. Now, a time where I'd recommend use this gadget is when you're outranged by your enemies. Since you will probably struggle against the enemies that have a longer attack range than you, you might need the gadget to help you stay alive. Even if you are playing against brawlers that deal high burst damage, then the quick heals can keep your health up too. Now, for all of you passive Rico players out there, I'd really recommend you guys use this gadget. Rico's other gadget is going to be more catered towards the aggressive players that use Rico. If your main goal with Rico is to just stay alive and maintain control of your lane, then I would recommend using Bouncy Castle. But speaking of Rico's other gadget, let's go and talk about his second gadget, Multi-Ball Launcher. Rico blasts 2 waves of piercing bullets with a range of 12 tiles all around himself that each deal 896 damage. These bullets behave identically to his super's bullets but last for a shorter period. Even though the bullets can hit multiple enemies, they can only damage each enemy once. Now obviously, if all of the bullets from this gadget can hit, it can deal insane amounts of damage. However, this gadget is very inconsistent as the bullets spread from out of him, so it's best to use this gadget at a point blank range. His gadget is best used when in an enclosed area where the bullets will bounce multiple times and guarantee to hit an enemy trapped within that area. Now, the main reason why this gadget has become so popular amongst the pros is because it's a great counter to tanks and assassins. Since brawlers like Frank are dominating the meta, the quick damage that you can deal with this gadget can help you finish off weak enemies or just to chip down enemies that are not even close to you. Now, kind of like what I said earlier, you want to be using this gadget when the enemies are as close as possible to you. Since you want the most amount of shots to hit the enemy as you can, you want to use this gadget when the enemy is pretty much directly next to you if possible, just to increase your chances of more of those bullets hitting. And I know how earlier I was talking about like the Bouncy Castle gadget being catered more towards the passive players, but hey, if you're more of an aggressive player, I'd recommend using this gadget. Since you can deal quite a bit of damage by just activating this gadget, then it can help you just cause additional pressure to the enemies or catch some people off guard, since all of that damage will rack up. But okay, that's gonna be it for his gadgets. Let's go to talk about his star powers, but the first one I want to talk about is gonna be Robo Retreat. When Rico falls below 40% health, he runs 34% faster, allowing him to move much faster than most of the brawlers in the game. This speed boost disappears when his health is restored above 40%. Now, as you can imagine, this star power is going to be so helpful to help Rico play even more aggressive. He can now play a little more gung-ho by rushing into fights to try and finish off whoever your target may be. Doing so allows more of your bullets to hit enemies due to the increased accuracy. Now, not only is this star power going to be helpful to go aggressive onto the enemies, if they're aggressive onto you and you're low, you can use this star power to retreat. Most of the time, if you are falling below that 40% health threshold, that means you are probably taking some critical damage. So once this star power kicks in, it will give you that additional speed boost to help you run away, and it may save your life. Now, an underrated tip that I will give you guys that a lot of the pro players actually do is to purposely keep the star power active. Just think about it. If you're a good dodger, you can keep firing to prevent Rico from healing up and stay below that 40% health threshold. By doing this, you can use the speed buff to dodge enemy fire and even outrun fast brawlers within the game. If you just keep on shooting with your main attacks, you will not be healing from auto regeneration, thus helping you keep the star power in effect. So when should you guys really be using this star power? Well, I'd recommend using it on more opened up maps. Since his other star power is going to be better on maps with walls and bushes, if for whatever reason you are going to play Rico in more opened up maps, then the rest of the time this star power will be more useful for you. Now, speaking of his other star power, let's go and talk about his second star power, Super Bouncy. If Rico's bullets bounce off of a wall, they will glow roll and deal 256 additional damage. The bullets can only be supercharged once, and enemies will take regular damage if the bullets aren't bounced before they hit the enemies. Now, since you can deal an additional 256 damage per bullet, let's go and do some math about how much damage you can really do. While it doesn't seem like much additional damage from each bullet, when all 5 bullets are bounced, an additional 1280 damage is added, making his total damage 4480. Similarly, a bounce super will deal a total of 11712 damage. This encourages Rico to bounce shots off of walls for them to deal more damage, where he has the potential to bounce his shots from a safe distance. So since you want to be bouncing your shots off of walls, I'd recommend not using your super directly onto the enemies, especially if you expect the bullets to deal damage to the target again when they bounce off of another wall, as the super's bullets only deal damage once. So to properly use this star power, you must bounce the super off of a wall in such a way that the bounce shots hit the target and not the normal shots. Now, I recommend using the star power when you're playing on maps and game modes that have a lot of walls and bushes. You want to more than ever before to use walls to your advantage to deal that extra damage with your bullets. The more walls that there are on the map, the more opportunities you will have to try and get use out of this star power. I'd also recommend this star power to you passive Rico players that are out there. Since Robo Retreat is the more advanced star power for the aggressive Rico players, if that doesn't really fit your playstyle, then you can just run super bouncy. Also, if you plan on using Rico to mainly hold down a lane and keep control for your team, this star power is perfect for that. If you got a playmaker on your team already, then it won't be super necessary to run the Robo Retreat star power. Now let's be real here, the only reason why Rico is an S tier brawler in the meta right now is because of his Hypercharge. When activated, projectiles from Rico's super bounce much further than usual. He also gains a 26% speed boost, a 25% damage boost, and a 5% shield boost. Now unfortunately, his Hypercharge is just a Walmart knockoff version of his mutation. Although his Hypercharge is not as broken as his mutation, it is still a fantastic Hypercharge to have. It makes his super even tougher to deal with, and with the additional range when the shots bounce, it will help you finish off the enemies even quicker. Also, with just any other brawler that has a Hypercharge, you can use the Hypercharge to just get the buffs from the Hypercharge itself. Especially with the additional speed and damage boost, it will be paired insanely well with this Robo Retreat star power to make Rico move like a speed demon. It's like he'll be skating on ice, running faster than Usain Bolt. I mean, it's insane. And finally, another reason why I do recommend you guys buy this Hypercharge is because it's not too difficult to get. It's not insanely difficult to charge up his Hypercharge, kind of like Miko's. So if you are lasering the enemies, you should easily be able to get 2 Hypercharges throughout the match, depending on what game mode you are playing. So the build that I recommend you guys using with Rico is going to be using the multi-ball launcher gadget. I would recommend the Robo Retreat star power for more of you advanced and more aggressive Rico players, but if you are more of a passive Rico player, then you can go and use super bouncy. For his gears, you have to be using the reload gear to just reload faster, because hey, who wouldn't want to reload faster, right? And then finally go ahead and use the damage gear to just amplify whatever star power gadget you're using to just make him even stronger. And then of course go ahead and use his brand new Hypercharge, because hey, without that, this guide would not even be existing right now. Well, anyway guys, if you guys enjoyed that brawler guide, I highly recommend you go check out this brawler guide right here.